history. The first ever woman of color named to a presidential ticket. By picking Kamala Harris, Joe Biden keeps his pledge. But can the California senator truly aid in defeating Donald Trump? With less than 80 days to the election, the president moves to defund the Postal Service. Is his fear of mail ballot fraud legit, or is this blatant voter suppression? And here in the Lone Star State, it's really happening. Austin leaders vote to defund police. Will diluting law enforcement produce a safer or far more dangerous community? I'm Greg Groogan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, Charles Blain, founder of Urban Reform. Next up, Raj Salhotra, executive director of Momentum Education. In the 3 spot, Tomaro Bell, longtime super neighborhood leader. Batting cleanup today, Jacquie Baly, political science professor at the University of Houston downtown. And finally, legendary reporter turned media consultant Wayne Dolcefino. Let's begin. In an era where identity politics is acutely in play, Joe Biden picking a daughter of immigrants with both Black and Asian heritage seems to satisfy the progressive narrative in these turbulent times. But that's really not the bottom line. What really matters, what's linchpin, is whether a senator from a state he's already certain to win can significantly improve Biden's chances of taking out Donald Trump on November 3rd. Panel, she has been the front runner for the number 2 spot from the beginning. Is this a solid choice, or as some have suggested, an unimaginative, avoidable mistake? Let's start with Tomaro Bell.
No, I believe this was the smart choice for Joe Biden. One of the things he was having a problem with was grasping the young people, and that was one thing. The millennials, he couldn't get a grip on them. I believe selecting her, Masara, to be his running mate was a very wise choice. She's capable. She has shown it in the past. She's very intelligent and articulate. So I believe that he really made the smart choice in picking her for his running mate.
Jacquie Baly, do you think that this is a threat, this choice is a threat to Donald Trump, who's struggling right now in the polls?
No, Joe Biden had to select her because he is more centrist and he needs to really try to rally the progressives and really try to rally the party, because if he's going to be in his basement for the next 80-something days, then at least he has somebody who's at the forefront. The biggest problem that's going to happen for that team is that so many times on the campaign trail, Ms. Harris made sure that she told him and everyone else how racist she thought he was, how his policies over the last several decades have been racist, how she believed many of the women who said that he was guilty of sexual misconduct, and on and on and on. Many insiders on the Biden campaign did not want her to be his running mate for that reason, because she was the one that was coming at him the hardest during the primaries.
Raj, but the ultimate kumbaya is inviting Senator Harris onto the ticket. What's the sense among Democrats? Is this a great choice? And for your own family and relatives to have someone of Indian extraction on the presidential ticket?
Yeah, I think it was a home run for Joe Biden in several ways. I think the first is she's someone who is ready for prime time. We saw that when she was campaigning. Her debate performances, she is ready. She's going to be taking it to Vice President Pence in the debate. And she'll also, I think, be able to attack President Trump on the many ways that he's vulnerable. I think the second thing is she does galvanize the South Asian community. I have had many people reach out to me and say they're so proud to be Indian Americans, because this is a country where she represents the American dream. And the fact that she's now going to be a heartbeat away from becoming the president of the United States is actually incredible. And then, of course, the African-American community is the backbone of the Democratic Party. And to have her on the ticket speaks to that as well. She was an absolute perfect pick for Vice President Biden.
Okay, Wayne Dolcefino, there are those who argue there's a good chance that Senator Harris becomes president before the end of a first term if Biden wins this election. Do Republicans run against her hard as the future of the Democratic Party?
And look, I think you have to run partly against her, and I think that's the way you have to look at this, that this is going to be a good chance the next president. But can we do a couple of things here today? Let's celebrate all children of immigrants. Look, if last time I checked, we're all children of immigrants. Second, she ain't African American because her daddy was Jamaican and her mama was a South Asian, okay, which I think is great, okay? Can we get past all this? When do we get past this, all right? Because right now, I'm a child of Ukrainian people and Italian people. I know that doesn't count anymore because we're all lumped into this big white barrel, which is going to destroy this country. Let's celebrate the fact that she is a left-wing politician from San Francisco, right? That wants to give free health care to illegal immigrants. Look, I want to fight this on policy because at the end of the day, both presidential candidates are going to be weak. The reality is going to be, what do we want the country to be? I don't want to have a country where we have soft on crime politicians all over the country, where we have Medicare for all. Okay, I don't want that country. So I'm going to vote against their policies. I don't care where she's from. I don't care who her mom is from. And we got to just stop this nonsense. We're destroying ourselves.
Okay, Charles Blain, finally to you. We have heard criticism of Senator Harris's policies while serving as Attorney General of California, that she was essentially pro-law enforcement. Does that hurt her with voters?
I mean, pro-law enforcement is putting it lightly. I mean, being pro-law enforcement is fine, but she, abused the system. So unlike Raj, I think this is a strikeout. When you look at her record, she defended folks like police lab techs who suppressed information. One of the police lab techs, when they suppressed information, an investigation led to 600 cases being dismissed because of what she was doing in the lab. She also defended wrongful convictions that were obtained through evidence tampering and witness suppression and things like that. So this isn't just pro-law enforcement. She really abused the system and she held it hard. And the problem is that you have a base right now that's supporting defunding the police and criminal justice reform and policing reform. And you have a top of the ticket who built his career on incarcerating black and brown men through his 1994 crime bill. And then you have the bottom of the ticket who built her career on keeping them incarcerated. So it's hard for them to say they're building up these communities when the president has shown a history throughout the course of his administration of building up these communities, and their background shows them tearing down these communities. So it's going to be an interesting sell to make when you actually dig into her policy, because it is not helpful. On its face, it's a historic moment. Black women across the country should be excited about this, but there were better black women for him to pick who didn't build a career on tearing down communities.
Okay, we're going to talk a lot more about that. Up next, could this historic running mate pick actually impact the closely watched battleground race to represent Fort Bend and Brazoria counties in Congress? Welcome back. The choice of Kamala Harris, daughter of an Indian mother and a black father, as Joe Biden's running mate could have an impact on the most closely watched congressional battleground race in the Houston area. Democrat Sri Kulkarni says Biden's choice will energize in his favor Fort Bend County's extraordinarily diverse electorate.
Texas 22, we have the largest Asian American population. 20% of our district is Asian American. This is going to inspire people. You're going to see record turnout, which is going to help us flip Texas 22 and turn Texas blue.
Okay, panel, can Senator Harris actually be a difference maker in this critical down ballot contest? I'm going to start with you, Tomaro Bell.
Absolutely. To have someone who has a multiracial culture in a county like Fort Bend, where they are so diverse, it is definitely a positive for any of the candidates who may be close to what her background is. They have a lot of immigrants in Fort Bend County. With that being said, I also want to go to people who said, oh, she was Biden's enemy when they were running. That may have happened then, but this is now. They talk about that when they talk about how Ted Cruz was talked about by his daddy, his wife. Trump said his daddy killed Kennedy, then Lindsey Graham, and who's singing Trump's law? He is his Trump major cheerleader. So don't talk about what happened then. I wish them the best.
Okay, Jacquie Baly, you served on Sugar Land City Council. You know Fort Bend County really well. Do you think Kulkarni gets a boost from this VP pick?
Well, unlike what Biden said, not all Black people are the same. And a lot of us are ignoring the fact that Kamala is half Caribbean. And there are subtle cultural differences between Black Caribbeans and Black Americans who are here. That's one of the reasons why she did not do well when she ran for president herself. With all of that said, the voters in Fort Bend County are very educated. We don't align ourselves with someone based on what color they are, but what we do align with them are their policies and their efforts. And Sheriff Troy Nehls has served our county for decades. He has many South Asians supporting him, and he will prevail in November.
Okay, Raj, does Sri get a boost from this VP pick?
You know, I think he does, and I think the reason is because CD22 is the most diverse district in the United States, and therefore having a candidate like Kamala, who is biracial and who represents the diversity of this country, will absolutely help the Democrats. And to sort of drill down a little bit more, South Asian community has not been a huge voting bloc in the past. They are sort of coming alive, and this will absolutely help it in Shri's favor.
Okay, Charles Blain, to her African-American side, does this energize female voters, African-American voters in Fort Bend County?
I mean, I think Black women are going to be excited by it, as they should be. It's a historical moment, as we said before. But I think when you break it down, like Jackie said, people vote based on policy. And when you look at the policy that she has supported in the past and the way that she has flip-flopped on policy going into this presidential election, I don't think people are going to be sold on that. So while the historic moment is going to be accepted by a lot, I don't think that the actual policy is going to carry through.
Okay, Wayne, put a cap on this. I know you don't like identity politics, but they're real. Do you think it helps Shri Kulkarni, hurts Troy Nehls?
Look, I think it's going to be a law and order election, and I think Troy Nehls is a popular sheriff, and I think at the end of the day, folks who live out there, whatever color, wherever their mamas are from, they like being protected, and I think Troy Nehls wins.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Still ahead, critical of mail-in balloting, the president takes aim at the U.S. Postal Service. Welcome back. It's no secret the president rightly or wrongly claims mail-in ballots are subject to fraud. This week, Donald Trump took that belief a major step forward with an open threat to strangle the United States Postal Service with executive orders, including funding cuts.
They want $25 billion for the post office because the post office is going to have to go to town to get these ridiculous ballots in. But two of the items are the post office and the $3.5 billion for mail-in voting. Now, if we don't make a deal, that means they don't get the money.
Panel, some are calling the president's unprecedented action a brazen attempt to suppress the vote. Charles Blain, how do you see it?
Listen, the Postal Service is on life supports. In 2007, they lost $78 billion, $2.2 billion last quarter. And last year, mail was down 33%. People aren't using it the way that they used to use it. And so I think it is a problem, and we need to address it. These funding cuts, you can't continue to sustain something that cannot be self-sufficient, that people aren't relying on. Maybe if the 600,000 postal workers didn't have 7 different unions representing them, we'd be able to reduce some of these costs and keep it afloat. But I'm going to support him in this one. And make no mistake, this is by the directors, the board of governors of the postal office, not the president. He doesn't direct what happens. The postmaster general answers to the governors.
Okay, but the timing, Raj, do you think the timing is fishy?
Not just the timing, what he said on Fox News, where he specifically said that the reason he doesn't want to do this is so that there will not be enough resources to deliver the mail-in ballots. This is absolutely an attempt to ensure that the vote gets suppressed because, quite frankly, the only way Donald Trump can win this election is if he suppresses the vote, because he does not have the votes, certainly not in the popular vote, and not even in the Electoral College vote. Look at the polls.
Yeah, this seems counterintuitive to me, Jackie, because look, mail-in ballots in the past tend to be cast by older Americans who tend to break more conservative. What's going on here?
What's going on is that the Postal Service is $16 billion with a B in debt, and they have mismanaged their funds and resources for decades. This is not unknown to everyone. So the fact that the president continues to tell you, look, they need to have work within their budget, which they have not done in decades, is not surprising. They're making it political now because we all know during the pandemic, many Democrats have said this is an opportunity for us to widen the horizons as far as mail-in voting. But when we do mail-in voting, especially universal mail-in voting, that is when we really open up all types of frauds to happen when it comes to voting. So that's why many of us who are looking at this are saying this is not the way to go.
Okay, Tomaro, I want to get your read on this whole issue.
Listen, there's problems with the post office go way back to Bush with the postability accounting and enhancement bill that he did in 2006. But before that, the post office had deep pockets. Then he refined how they did their pension reform, and that is what has caused the post office to struggle. The emails, the US, the FedEx and all of that only made it worse. But this is blatant. You got to get a man one thing about it. I swear, what you see is what you get. I'm doing this because my ass gonna probably lose. So this is what I'm gonna do. Even though, mind you, I'm gonna request a mail-in ballot for myself. Now, how the hell that makes sense? What is wrong with you people? You gonna say it's corrupt, it don't work, but I need one. Come on.
Okay, Wayne, is this much ado about nothing, or does Tomaro have it right?
No, Tomaro doesn't have it right, but I think you already knew I was going to say that. So look, here's the reality. We need to get unions out of a lot of stuff that isn't really critical, and the Postal Service is one of them. We can save all the money we need. Second, we just had a Democratic runoff, remember, a few weeks ago, right? And I didn't hear anyone saying that if people went to vote, they were going to suddenly get struck down by the COVID monster, okay? Look, people go out all the time. Can we stop this nonsense? People go out all the time. They go to HEB, they go pick up Chick-fil-A, whatever they do, right? They can get off their butts and go vote every couple of years or couple of months. Can we stop playing this? Oh, they're trying to kill us if we vote. Look, as someone who's investigated this stuff, mail-in ballot fraud is real. Ballot harvesting is real. The Republicans don't play that game. They play others. It's the Democrats who play that game.
They created it. Give me a break.
Okay, we got to leave it there. When we come back, it's no longer just talk as a major Texas city actually defunds its police. Welcome back. Talk of defunding police is now reality in the capital city of Texas. Members of Austin's unapologetically liberal city council have stripped the police department of $150 million, a full third of its previous budget, also canceling the next 3 cadet classes. They plan to shift the money to other community support programs. Council members dismiss warnings of dire consequences as quote unquote fear-mongering. Panel, what do you think of what's going on in Austin? Wayne Dolcefino, is this the end of civilization?
Oh, I would say the end of civilization, and Austin's already on a cliff to nowhere, right? Have you been there lately? What used to be a really cool R&B kind of hippie armadillo world headquarters place in the 70s is now turned into like Portland of Texas, right? You can't even be downtown most of the time because of all the homeless folks that are like sort of attacking you if you don't give them money. Can I tell you something? This is what's going to happen in Houston next. They're already planning it. They're already preparing it. And anyone who doesn't realize what's going on is wrong. And that is why a major American party has gone off the cliff, and it's called the Democratic Party.
Okay, Tomaro, would cutting a full third of HPD's budget ever play in the neighborhoods?
Absolutely not. Let me be real clear. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am not for defunding the police. I am for enhancement and some correction, because one of the things that the police and HPD do not, in my opinion, deal with enough is mental illness. So I do believe that they need to engage more outreach to have mental ill experts go along with them. I am sure, because I don't believe in defunding the police and because of how open I am, that's why I was not picked for the police reform, even though, as Charles showed me, I have more votes than anybody to be on the committee. But I know that's why I didn't get picked, because I'm going to be open and honest. Yes, they do need to do some serious house cleaning, but I do not believe in defunding the police, because where I live, they can't afford for private security. Who the hell going to rescue me?
Okay, Raj, folks are going to be watching this experiment in Austin to see if it goes south, or they actually have a safer community with these community programs. Yeah. What's your take?
You know, I think a couple of things. One is one of the benefits of local control is localities can try things, right? And we can sort of see pilot programs. So I think that's one. I think the second point is there's clearly some benefit and reality that it would make sense to reallocate some funding to increase mental health support, to increase, for example, the homeless outreach team, the hot team that we do have here in Houston. And so I think rather than the calls for defund or not defund, let's look at specific policy changes to actually enhance security and stability.
Okay, Jacquie Baly, a third of the PD budget in Austin, that's quite a haircut. Can any department sustain that in a metropolitan area?
It would be quite difficult for them to do so. And did I miss something? Was there some type of racial unrest that happened in Austin that I missed? To take away $150 million from their budget just because you're seeing political unrest or you're seeing protests happening in other cities, which is what the city council cited when they made that move, is unfathomable. I mean, having this happen to this department when crime is on the rise, when homelessness is on the rise, when they need those resources more than ever, is something that is irresponsible of that city council. And the Ladies Women's Association president said, if you want to take money away, why don't we start by taking away your security? They said,
Let me jump in here. Charles, take 30 seconds.
80% of Black Americans polled just last week said they want the same, if not more, police in their neighborhoods. They just want better relationships with them. So when you look around the country and look at these cities that are defunding the police, these are cities often led by white mayors. I think you see a lot of Black mayors who understand that these communities don't want that. They don't need that. They can't afford private security. They can't afford these contract deputy programs. They can't afford, or they don't have private gun ownership in high numbers to protect themselves. So this isn't helping the communities they claim it's helping. It's just a feel-good measure that's going to prove to be really bad.
Okay, going to leave it there. Coming up, confusion over the safety of sending our kids back to school. Is Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo helping or just deepening the chaos?
The countdown to the first day of school in person is like a ticking time bomb unless we do this right.
Another unenforceable order issued this week by Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo, who insists it is still far too unsafe for area children to return to their actual classrooms. Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton have repeatedly said the decision of when and how students return lies solely with local school district leaders. Hidalgo's guidance comes as several ISDs kicked off their fall semester of instruction online, and based on our monitoring of social media has created considerable confusion among parents who are struggling to decide who they should trust. We have an education expert on our panel. Raj, what do you make of all this?
I think, yeah, it is a challenge, certainly for parents and students who we are working with and we're talking to. I think that the governor did say that local school boards can talk to the county health officials to sort of get their input. And I think what the county judge tried to do here was outline some of her and her team's advice on what to do. Now, whether it's going to add more confusion and she could have sent this guidance directly to the school board leaders and to the school district leaders, I think that's up for debate. But I think the goal here was just to provide additional guidance from her perspective, which they can always ask for.
Okay, this is supposed to be about public health, but Jacquie Baly, do you see any politics involved?
Of course there are politics involved, and it's very confusing. If you have one governmental entity, the leader of one governmental entity saying one thing which contradicts what the governor is saying, then a lot of parents are very confused and they're wondering what the purview is. The judge is expanding her authority. But most importantly, look, Harvard's Global Health Institute said that schools can begin to reopen at 25 per 100 residents if the cases are that count. Her recommendation is 3 times more stringent. So not only is she confusing everything, but she's made her numbers and her parameters are much more stringent than what you see a lot of medical experts saying.
Okay, Tomaro Bell, you were a teacher in a classroom once upon a time. The teachers aren't real excited about coming back, or at least those in the Houston area. We had a lawsuit by the union out in Cy-Fair.
Listen, I believe that one thing people must take in mind, you're talking about people's children. You're not talking about their car. You're not talking about their house. You're talking about their children. For most parents, that is the most precious thing you have on the planet is your child. Or if you're a grandparent raising your children, your grandchild, which I know a lot of them are, that's the most important. This is not something you know, shoot the dice like you shooting craps and decide what to do. I know that there are some students, if they don't have in-class learning, they're not going to learn, okay? It is impossible that you are going to be able to keep all students out. This can be done. These are supposed to be intelligent people. You can do, as I said, rotating days. Kindergarten's only in the school that day. First grade's only in the school that day. Second grade, so that you can spread them out. It can be done. A percentage brought in at this time. A percentage, it can be done. But online for first, second, and third grades, it just don't work.
Okay, Charles Blain, take about 45 seconds here. The political issue, is Hidalgo causing more chaos than legitimate, productive guidance?
Yeah, no, it's certainly more chaos. I mean, listen, for these kids out there, she is not their mother, she's not their father, she's not their superintendent, and she's not their school board, their school trustee. And so what she is saying is that you need to take her guidance that's coming from her health department at a higher regard than you would the governor's, than, as Jackie said, the Harvard Public Health School, than the American Association, I think it was of pediatrics, who came out and said, she's telling you that you should be taking hers and prioritizing hers. And that's problematic. And it is sending a lot of confusion out to a lot of parents who are struggling to figure out what to do with their kid. And not to mention, these parents are also struggling currently with the issue that many of them cannot afford to feed their kids when they don't have free and reduced breakfasts and lunch. They don't have the access to the Wi-Fi and all these other things they're struggling with. She's just adding fuel to the fire, and it's certainly not needed right now. So I think people should be listening to the governor's advisories and the attorney generals, because they're certainly more point.
Okay, Wayne, final 30 seconds for you to button up this topic.
Okay, so Lena Hidalgo needs to hush up, okay? Because I'm sick of this nonsense, right? Despite how screwed up our school districts are. Second of all, as someone who has a daughter at U of H and a son in law school, I think we should start getting refunds. I think all taxpayers should start demanding refunds of a significant portion of the money, unless they let parents decide what the hell they want to do with their own darn kids.
Got to leave it there. Up next, Trump's education chief delivers new legal leverage to those accused of sex abuse on college campuses. But will traumatized victims ultimately pay a steep price? In the fog of pandemic and against the concerns of attorney generals in 17 states, highly controversial changes went into effect Friday to the education equity law known as Title IX. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos pushed through new protections for those accused of sexual harassment or abuse on college campuses. Most critically, the legal option of those accused to confront and cross-examine their accusers in a live venue. It also limits actual enforcement to abuse that occurs on school property and grants religious schools an exemption when accused of gender-based discrimination. Hey, look, I'm going to go to you, Raj. What do you think about this change in Title IX pushed through by DeVos?
Yeah, it's not good at all. We know that students on college campuses often face sexual assaults, sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and we need to create a culture where it is easier for them to bring forward their claims, where it is easier for them to get the vindication they deserve. And all of these changes, whether it's the cross-examining, whether it's the delay period, whether it's the exemptions, whether it's the only on-campus controlled buildings, all of those are going to make it harder for victims, and I think it's absolutely the wrong approach.
Wayne, DeVos says this is about due process for folks, some of whom may be falsely accused. What do you think of this?
Well, there's some male doctorate students over at Rice University who've had their entire lives destroyed because of an allegation that may or may not be true. So people are getting lives destroyed, and I think there's problems on both sides. We know what the biggest problem is that universities are not transparent. Texas Tech women's basketball program, for 2 years, female athletes weren't complaining about dudes. They were complaining about the coaches, right? It was all kept secret. The problem is going to be transparency. At the end of the day, these universities cannot be trusted to tell the truth. There's got to be due process, though, on both sides, guys. We've got to be careful.
Okay, we got to get to our ladies. Jackie, what do you think about this?
Well, of course, this puts more of the burden on the university. But I do feel, as far as trying to keep up with the new regulations, especially during a pandemic, but I do feel it is necessary that if you are going to accuse someone of a crime or accuse someone of misconduct, that you do have a preponderance of evidence. And that's what they're saying. I also do feel that the cross-examination will actually bring a lot of the truth to the surface. And so even though some people say, well, it's going to be harder on the victims or harder on certain people, there are certain measures that are put in place that the victims do have the opportunity and the abilities to have their story heard. And this is helping, as Wayne said, bringing more transparency to the system.
But is it really an advance if it means fewer women who have been abused come forward? And I throw that question to Tomaro Bell.
Absolutely. This is more onerous on the victim. Went to college, know somebody who was raped when we were in the dorms, and they did not want to tell anybody. They were just, they really felt so ashamed. Yeah. And a lot of times when people are victims of sexual abuse, they don't come out forth. And now you saying they got to confront the person, they got to do that. Hell, this is stupid as hell. This is just common sense. You ain't got to be a lawyer.
Charles, 30 seconds. Button us up.
No, it's tough to say, that they're going to have to confront that they're going to have to confront each other. I'm sure it's going to be difficult, and it might deter some folks from coming forward. But what the judge said is that this is going to help both, because in the end, now that they're adhering closer to due process, the likelihood of these cases being overturned is going to be slimmer. So that if the resolution that is found in the end, it's going to be upheld because of the due process that's going to be followed. So hopefully the cases are more thorough, and in the end, the resolution is better than what it would have been before. So, it's going to be tough, but it seems like the changes might have been necessary.
This could all change if we have a different president come January. Still ahead, we go in depth on values and vision with Seema Lajavardian, the hard-charging Democrat seeking to knock Dan Crenshaw out of Congress. To play or not to play, this pandemic makes that decision a very dicey call. The Big 12, which counts 4 major Texas universities among its members, announced this week its football teams will compete this fall. Other major conferences like the Big 10 and Pac-12 have chosen to postpone competition, and still others like the powerhouse SEC are still mulling their options. Panel, given what we know about COVID-19, who is making the right call? Raj, what do you think?
I think that the Big Ten is right. We should be delaying. It's just too much of risk. We don't know. It's not like the NBA where it's in a bubble and nobody's leaving and going. This is very different. We have college students here, and it's just a risk to people's health. And I understand the economic impact. I understand the cultural value of football, both the college and high school level. We all like the Friday nights, the Saturdays, the Sundays. But I think we have to consider our safety here, and delaying it till the spring, while not ideal, might save lives, and I think it's worth it.
Jackie, you have sons who are gifted athletes, and you probably thought about this issue. Do you think the Big 12 is getting it right here?
I say we move forward. The fact that you have these young men and women who's put their lives on hold. My eldest is a senior in college. He was supposed to graduate in May because baseball season was canceled. Guess what? He's now postponed his graduation and hoping that he has a baseball season for the major leagues to look at him. If they continue to cancel things, you have a lot of missed opportunities for a lot of these young men and women. Let's move forward. The actual opportunities that they have far outweighs, or that they're missing, far outweighs what would actually happen if they caught the virus.
Lots of money involved, Charles. Take 20 seconds.
Yeah, I think to Jackie's point right there, it makes so much sense. There's so many students there who have been kind of waiting for this opportunity. They're getting ready to graduate. They're looking forward to their future potentially in sports, and now it's being put on hold because of that. And not to mention, I think that the conferences can benefit significantly economically from this. There was a study by the Center for Digital Future or something, and they said that 56% of people willing to live stream sports are willing to pay more to do so. So they can also generate more revenue by this. So I think it's a good idea to move forward with precautions and be safe. But I think there are a lot of things at stake if they put it on hold for too long.
Okay, Tomaro, real quick.
First off, 100th birthday to Clarice Freeman. Happy birthday. Love you. Now, as the football thing, one thing you have to look at is the reality of it. You got NFL players saying they're not coming back yet. There needs to be a serious evaluation of what they need to do, because the side effects of getting COVID, even if you're 30, if you're 20, if you're 40, if you're 50, they don't know. There are new ones coming out every day. What they're saying it does to the heart. Would I want my child to end up with a defective heart for the rest of his life because he wants to run out there and try to get a scholarship? Hell no.
Okay, Wayne, finally, hook 'em horns. Are you in favor of Big 12 play?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's play ball. And look, right now, COVID deaths are about 3 times more than the average flu season. Let's say it ends up 10 times more. And let's say we already know, but no one wants to really keep talking about it, is that most of the people are the very elderly or the very immune. Keep them safe, keep them at home, and let the kids get out and do their thing.
Gonna leave it there. Still to come, amid this terrible pandemic, an extraordinary example of life-preserving leadership in the heart of Harris County. Welcome back. Credit where major credit is due. Months ago, at the beginning of this pandemic, dire, even catastrophic forecasts emerged, predicting the likelihood of COVID-19 rampaging through the close quarters of the Harris County Jail, leaving a trail of dead inmates. At one point, Judge Lena Hidalgo and fellow Democrats on Commissioner's Court called for a whole-scale release of those in custody as a public safety preserving precaution. When the option of dumping thousands of alleged criminals back on the street proved untenable, Sheriff Ed Gonzalez was left with a Herculean, seemingly impossible challenge, that is, keeping 8,000 plus defendants and hundreds more dedicated detention officers COVID-free. Nearly 5 months later, a grand total of 3 inmates have succumbed to the virus. 3, when naysayers were predicting dozens, if not hundreds, would lose their lives. How did the sheriff and his team succeed where others failed? Best practices implemented with absolute rigor. Pre-screening, testing, effective quarantine, social distancing, and lots of PPE. Bottom line, some first responders become life-preserving heroes by running into fires or stopping gunmen. Sheriff Gonzalez, on the other hand, quietly kept lots of hearts beating with his focus, his discipline, his leadership, and his team's implementation of the best science available. That's my take and all our time. The discussion continues on a national level next with Fox News Sunday. This week, ahead of the Democratic National Convention, Chris Wallace sits down with convention co-chair and New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy for an exclusive interview. For all of us here, have a safe and healthy week.